Welcome back to another episode of SJHL Insider presented by SGI. My name is Jeromy Corrigan, Media Manager for the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. And it's an exciting day because obviously it's episode 2 of SJHL Insider. But today I am not alone. And it's probably because nobody wants to hear me talk for an hour straight. So we are bringing in our good friend, producer Clark Monroe. Clark, how are we doing today?
I'm doing great, Jeremy. It is. I will gladly listen to you talk for an hour, and I'm pumped to be back on a broadcast with you. This is fun.
It's going to be very fun, and essentially Clark's going to be my assistant. He's going to help me out when we don't have in-studio guests, which is exciting. But it is going to be a lot of fun, and it's been a whole lot of fun the first week of the SJHL season. We've seen some very exciting games, and we might as well get into our hat trick of topics to start the show.
Yeah, so we're going to have a little fancy thing pop up here really soon where we're going to
today,
it's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Not today, but just be ready for it because it's coming. But the first topic of today's hat trick is Tuesdays and Wednesdays games. Now, there were some really interesting games going on the last couple of days. So, Jeremy, let's get into it. Let's start with Tuesday. And I know Director Jordan's going to be able to bring up the schedule here for us in just a sec. So, start with Tuesday. There were some really interesting finales in that one.
Yeah, the Estevan Bruins picking up their first win of the season in Nipawin, winning 4-1 against the Nipawin Hawks. The Estevan Bruins are in their first win of the season, obviously bouncing back. A big 4-1 win for Estevan on the road, getting their first win of the season after I think they were a little disappointed after being swept against the Yorkton Terriers. And then a thriller in Kindersley between the Notre Dame Hounds and the Kindersley Clippers, really back and forth. Jared Sitch had an outstanding game, 2 goals, including the shootout winner. And you have to give Kindersley credit, too. Like, they were down late in the third period and scoring the tying goal with just a second on the clock. A thriller at the West Central Event Center on Toonie Tuesday.
Oof, Toonie Tuesday. And the other great part about that, too, is that those were 2 teams that had a bit of a rough start, right?
Yep.
Like, they were both went into that game 0-2. And it just goes to show how exciting I think this whole season's going to be because that's a 5-4 shootout game, right? Like, that's exciting.
Notre Dame was 0-1 going into the game because of the cancellation from Sunday. But regardless, they still get their first win of the season, it's great for them. But as we move to Wednesday, 3 games on the schedule in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, and 2 teams that were 2-0 going into the game improved to 3-0. But we'll start at the top. The Nipawin Hawks, they bounced back. An impressive 6-3 win over the Estevan Bruins. It was a great contest. Estevan was actually up 3-2 late in the second period, but we've really seen the offense of the Nipawin Hawks come into fruition to start this season. And, of course, we'll hear more about the Estevan Bruins and their start to the season with our guest today, the voice of the Bruins, Nolan Kowal. But the Nipawin Hawks bouncing back at home, winning 6-3, a very great bounce-back performance for the Hawks. And then you also have the Battle for North Stars jumping out and winning 6-1 against the Notre Dame Hounds and the Yorkton Terriers with a 3-1 win over the Weyburn Red Wings to improve to 3-0. So there's 2 teams right now, Clark, in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League that are 3-0, that being the Yorkton Terriers and the Battle for North Stars. Both teams off to a really great start.
Absolutely. And, Yorkton was a team, I think, from last year. We saw that scrappy playoff performance by them, and they came in. A lot of guys got 1 year older, and as you know, in junior hockey, that turnover is really important. They kept some really important players. They're getting great goaltending so far, and they were able to beat Weyburn. Battlefords comes out. Big time scoring from Kesslering over there, obviously putting up the hat trick. But one thing too, Jeremy, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit when Nolan joins you, is the big headline out of the Estevan Nipawin game might be Cam Hrdlicka and his injury status. What's that going to be for them? So another really interesting night because a lot of things are coming from those games, a lot of storylines coming. So a great night.
And
yeah,
I think
absolutely.
I wrote in the article on SJHL.ca when it comes to the recap from Wednesday night is one thing in that Battleford game that I think is going to be overlooked because of the score of being 6-1 was the outstanding performance in between the pipes from Josh Kotai. 40 saves on 41 shots, and you wouldn't expect that from a goaltender, when his team wins 6-1, but Notre Dame threw a lot of pucks towards the front of the net, and he's been sharp ever since kind of taking the reins in between the pipes for the Battle North Stars, since halfway through the first game of the season.
And, I mean, you and I have both been involved in this league now. I mean, Jeromy and I used to work together with the Estevan Bruins several years ago, but we know that a good and a hot goaltender in this league can take you a long, long way. So if they're going to start getting performances like this, and if this guy can keep running with this, this could put Battlefords on a whole new level in terms of what they're able to do this season. Although they're also a very good team in front of them as well. A hot goalie and a good goalie in this league can elevate you to a whole new level.
And they have two great goalies in Battlefords, to say the least, and a team that I know a lot of people have been talking highly about this SJHL season. And you mentioned Steven Kesslering, 3 goals last night for the Battleford North Stars. Already off to a good start this week. Maybe he's going to be the MVP of the week, but that's kind of where we go into our second topic.
Yeah, the second topic of the hat trick today is going to be looking back at the players of the week from opening weekend. So the SGU MVP of the week was Brady Keisman from the Nipawin Hawks.
Yes, and Keisman
he continues to go with that as well.
Yeah, Braden Keisman was outstanding for the Hawks in opening week. 2 goals, 3 assists. I saw him in Nipawin in that 5-2 win against the Flin Flon Bombers. And Nipawin really playing an exciting brand of hockey, putting a lot of pucks on net. They play fast, they play physical, and they really like to generate a lot of offense, which is obviously really exciting. And for all the fans at the cage, they are going to be very excited with that brand of hockey. And worth mentioning, in that 6-3 win last night for the Nipawin Hawks against the Estevan Bruins, who had a hat trick, and it was Braden Keisman. So he's off to a hot start this season and well deserving of MVP of the week.
Absolutely. Might be a repeat performance as well.
Well, Steven Kessler has something to say about it right now. It's early. We'll see.
The SaskTel goalie of the week, Joel Favreau of the Melfort Mustangs. What can you say?
Yeah, he's been, going into this season on our other show, SJHL Weekly, with our good friends, Jamie Neugebauer and Rory McGoran, both said, Joel Favreau is, there's a good chance he's going to be the top goaltender in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League this season, and he kind of proved it in opening weekend. 2 goals against in 2 games. Obviously, the first game, the results weren't there, but that was a tough game in Flin Flon where between both goalies, they only allowed a goal, and there was an empty netter. But then the next night, he goes out, and he just allows 1 in a picture-perfect weekend, I would say, for Favreau in between the pipes. Well-deserving, only allowing the 2 goals, and he's going to have to be big this weekend because they have a stiff test with their home-and-home Saturday against the Humboldt Broncos. But, of course, we will get to that later on in the show. But well-deserving for Favreau.
And speaking of Rory and Jamie, you mentioned them earlier. They both agreed that this next player might be a candidate for Rookie of the Year. Karsten Cater getting the Direct West Rookie of the Week from the Humboldt Broncos.
Yeah,
after a good first game.
And by talking to both of them, it sounds like, for Karsten, we're probably going to be seeing him in Rookie of the Week quite a bit this season. And there was a lot to like from the Humboldt Broncos in their first game of the season. And unfortunately, obviously, they didn't get to play that second game. But a 7-2 win over the Notre Dame Hounds in their first game of the year on Saturday. A lot to like from that team's performance, and one of them was Karsten's performance. 2 assists in his SJHL debut, and really the sky's the limit for him this season, and I think we're going to be seeing a lot of him when it comes to the Rookie of the Week status presented by Direct West this season.
And like Rory said on SJHL Weekly on Monday, he's in a great situation. It's a great team. Mm-hmm. He's got some great players around him to kind of, not insulate him, but kind of let him kind of play
but he can learn
role
from
the team, and they can learn. Absolutely. A lot of upside for Karsten Cater. And finally, the defenseman of the week, Tyson Perkins from those Yorkton Terriers we mentioned earlier, undefeated so far. Tyson Perkins, one of those big players for them. I think they're going to expect a lot from him this year.
Yeah, and I don't think a lot of people thought the Yorkton Terriers would sweep the Estevan Bruins for opening weekend, but they did. 2 outstanding performances, obviously spoiling the banner-raising performance in Estevan on the Friday night, and then Saturday night the home opener for the Terriers in their 50th anniversary season and having a great performance. And Perkins had an assist in each game for the Terriers, and he's going to be a big part of that back end for the Terriers this season. And he played a big role last night or Wednesday night, I should say, just in case whenever you're watching or listening to this, for the Yorkton Terriers as they earn that 3-1 win over the Weyburn Red Wings to improve to 3-0, and Yorkton's off to a great start, and Perkins is a big reason why.
There you go. So that's going to be topic number 2 for the hat trick, and then we move on to the number 3, the hat trick point, as you will. This is going to be the showcase. Now, this is a big one every year for the SJHL. I remember the early days of the showcase and how it's developed since then in the wonderful facility in Warman. Jeromy, you're going to be there. Our crew is going to be there. We're going to be doing some broadcasting from there. Tell the fans about what's going on in the showcase, I guess, and what they can expect from both us as the SJHL media team and as well as everything else going on there.
We got two games on Sunday, 4 games on Monday, 4 games on Tuesday, and 2 games on Wednesday. Whew. Each team playing 2 games at the Legends Arena in Warman. It's going to be outstanding hockey, to say the least. Of course, the SJHL has partnered with SaskTel, so you can watch all the games on SaskTel Max, and I do believe on Hockey TV as well, and also I think on SaskTel's Facebook as well. That's what it's always been in the past. So lots of ways to watch the games this year, and it all kicks off Sunday afternoon as the Kindersley Clippers face off against LaRange Ice Wolves, and then the Nipawin Hawks take on those Yorkton Terriers, which will be a great matchup. But a lot of hockey in a short period of time, and you're going to see a lot of content coming from the SJHL Twitter account, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, website. Am I missing one?
Have we got a Be Real yet? Because this is a new thing we got to make. We might have to get on that.
No, let's not get on.
Pump the brakes.
Yeah, let's pump the brakes on Be Real. But I mean, we've both been to showcases in the past. It's such a great league event. We've seen, they're expecting over 100 scouts to be at the events, for all these great players in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League that definitely deserve the exposure that they deserve, and hopefully that will help them advance to that next level, because that's what the SJHL and Junior A hockey is all about, helping players get to that next level. And
I speak about the early days of the showcase, going back to when you and I were in Estevan, how it used to be kind of an all-star format where they would put different teams from different age groups almost in an all-star team. And it's developed into something that means a little bit more, because these games actually have physical meaning in the standings. These games matter in the league. So it's more of a real game setting rather than a bunch of players thrown together that have never played together. And I really like how they've changed that. I firsthand, Jeromy, have seen players get scholarships because of how the scouts viewing them at this showcase. I think of David Robertson with the Estevan Bruins back in the day. I remember I was talking to a scout, and he signed with that team going into college. So this is a very important few days for these players, and a lot of these scouts get a lot of information from these games. So it's an exciting 4 days. And I can't wait to see all the stuff that's going to come out of it as well, content-wise. We're going to get to know some players by the sounds of it. We're going to get to know some of the sponsors and teams, players that are involved, people that are involved in the teams. So I can't wait to see what you get up to there, Jeromy.
It's exciting. It's busy. It's a lot of fun. And just to put a bow on the SJHL Showcase, last year in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, 60 players ended up being committed following that season. But our guest for today's show, Nolan Kowal, is on the line. He joins us from the beautiful community of Estevan, which I know Clark and I have definitely spent some time. There he is. Hey, Nolan, how's it going?
I'm doing very well, Jeromy. How are you?
I'm doing great. We were just talking about it. How was the bus ride home last night? What time did you get in last night?
We got back to Estevan just before 4 a.m., and I was joking with your old colleague Lyle McGilvery that I should have just came straight to the station and done the CJ morning show here, because I was still wired at that time, Jeromy. So it was a late night.
You know what? And I'm sure you could ask Lyle, and he would tell you that I definitely did that a few times when I was in Estevan. I got right off the bus and I just went straight to work because we were short staffed. But, before we get into last night's games, let's talk a little bit about last year, because it was your first year in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League, which is very exciting. And you couldn't have come in at for a better year, because Estevan played host to the Centennial Cup. They win their first championship since 1999. What was last season like for you as your first year in the SJHL?
Oh, wow. Yeah, where to start? I mean, first of all, it was the most fun I've ever had broadcasting hockey in my life. Most fun I've ever had broadcasting sports, period. And I've done a fair bit here, kind of relatively still early in my career. So, it was a special group, Jeromy, right from the start. The players they brought in, from the Mark Rumseys to the Olivier Pouliots to the Boston Belois, is a lot of major junior guys that just gelled so well. And they lost 10 games, I believe, all last season in the regular season. And then, they really got it going in the playoffs. And the one thing I'll never forget about last year is the finals against the Flin Flon Bombers. I mean, that's the best hockey that I've ever broadcasted live, for sure. Just the travel, and then the Whitney Forum and Affinity Place sold out here. The finals was just unbelievable, and obviously to win it in Game 7 at home was pretty, storybook stuff for this franchise here in Estevan. So all told, last year, my first year, felt very lucky to be a part of it. As you say, just came in at a great time, and it's a special season that I was fortunate to be a part of, and it's one that the city here will remember for a long time.
Yes, that city will definitely remember it for an awful long time, at least till the next one, the next time they win a championship, for sure. Let's get into this week. The Bruins have already been busy playing 2 games. Let's talk about the game on Tuesday. They earned their first win of the season, a 4-1 win over Nipawin. How was that game for the Bruins?
Yeah, they played very well in that game, Jeromy. That was their best effort of the season, I thought. And, they scored 1 in the first, had a really great second period. They added 3 more, and then they were able to take it home in the third. I thought they played maybe a more disciplined game in that one on Tuesday. Maybe Nipawin wasn't at their best. I thought Nipawin was a lot better in yesterday's game. We can touch on that if you guys want to as well. But no, I thought that was Estevan's most complete game of the season, and they got the 2 points. And there's a lot to like about this team early. Obviously, the cage and Nipawin's a bit of a different dynamic, maybe a tougher place for visitors to play in, as you guys know. But they got the 2 points in that game, and then maybe took a bit of a step back last night. But there's a lot to like about this team early, and we'll see how it goes if they can improve as we go along here.
Yeah, let's move to last night's game. They had a 3-2. The Bruins had a 3-2 lead late in the second period, but then the Hawks just rattled off 4 straight goals. What happened, I guess, in Wednesday night's game after they got up 3-2?
Well, Bryden Kiesman happened, right? I mean, he's the SJHL's leading scorer right now. He's off to a hot start. He had the hat trick last night, high glove on all 3. He can really shoot it, and he was the driving force last night for the Nipawin Hawks. It was a good hockey game through 40 minutes, guys. I mean, it was back and forth, some lead changes, and then, as you say, just kind of early in the third, things kind of unraveled on the Bruins. Kiesman got the goal in the opening minute of the third. They scored 3 times in the first 4 minutes of the third, and the game was really over at that point. The Bruins are chasing. They got into some penalty trouble, which negated any comeback hopes that they had. Cam Herdlicka left with an injury, so that was part of last night's game as well. So they were right there. They were right there after 40 minutes, and unfortunately for Estevan, Nipawin just came out in the third and took over. And so, after playing a pretty good game on Tuesday, I mean, you could argue that they took a bit of a step back last night, now heading into Weyburn on Friday tomorrow.
Have you heard anything about Cam's status? How's Cam doing?
I have not. No, it's undisclosed injury, and we'll wait from an update with the coaching staff there. Obviously, that'd be a big loss, Jeromy. Cam Herdlicka's the guy this year with the Bruins after what he did last year, right? So, Cam's a great kid. I've gotten to know him a little bit, and hopefully he's back in the lineup tomorrow.
Yeah, and I'm sure the Bruins will want to have him back in the lineup as soon as possible. Let's chat a little bit about the game tomorrow against the Weyburn Red Wings, the first installment of the Highway 39 rivalry. What do you expect?
Well, I expect a sold-out crowd and a pretty fun atmosphere to be a part of. That's one of the things I experienced last year for the first time. Even though the Bruins kind of dominated that season series, the Weyburn fans still came out and they were still passionate as they always were. So it's a fun environment. It's a fun atmosphere. I think that season series is going to be a lot tighter this year. I know Weyburn is improved. The Bruins obviously are not the powerhouse they were last year. So I think it'll be a good game. I think it's a big game for the Bruins after losing last night, and it's a bit of a litmus test early. I mean, they faced some adversity in the first 4 games, and now they got to go into a hostile environment, albeit with Bruins fans who travel to that rink. But they got to go in on a Friday night in Weyburn to try to beat this Red Wings team in a big rivalry game to try to get their second win of the year. So I expect a good hockey game tomorrow night, and we'll see if the Bruins can bounce back. I'll be watching for that.
When you look at this Viterra division, you kind of mentioned it. Weyburn's improved, Melville's improved, Yorkton's off to a 3-0 start, but it still seems like this division's kind of, up in the air for anybody right now.
It is. And going in, I was asked this question by Rob Hart, actually, my buddy up in Flin Flon. He asked me who's going to win the division. I said the Bruins. I still thought Estevan matched up very well against their division and thought they brought in enough in the offseason. It is going to be a competitive division, Jeremy. Yorkton's been impressive through the first week, right? They beat the Bruins in 2 one-goal games to start the year. Looks like they got a stud in net in Caleb Allen, right? There were questions around that with DePape leaving. Melville, I think, is going to be much improved. I like a lot of their younger prospects last year. And then Weyburn, I obviously haven't seen live yet. Oh, I guess I saw him in the preseason, but I think they'll be a competitive bunch too. So you could argue this division's wide open. You really could, right? And Yorkton, obviously the front runner early. We are only a week into the year. Obviously the division games have gone down a little bit since last year, right? The Bruins won't be playing Weyburn 10 times. But the early indicators are that, this could be a very competitive division with a lot of parity and a lot of tight games. And so it'll be a good test for all the teams and for the Bruins to play all these divisional games to see where they stack up in the Viterra division.
And that's the theme of the SJHL this season, and really in years past as well, is the parity in the league. And that's what makes the league so exciting, and that's what's going to make those divisional games that much more important. I guess final question for you, Nolan, is you've kind of already alluded to it, but the fact that the Bruins are 1-3 to start the year, obviously that's not where how they wanted to be through 4 games, but it seems like it's early, right? It's no time to panic in the Estevan right now.
It's early. There's no time to panic. I know some of the fans are concerned with what we experienced last year. I think maybe the expectations were that, hey, we want another winning team. We're going for another championship. Right. Obviously, there was major changes. The team was always going to be very different. They've played 4 games. They've been in every game. Right? I'll point that out. And they've wound up on the wrong side of some scores early. No, I don't think it's time to push the panic button. I think this team's still gelling. I think they're still adjusting to the system that Jason Tatarnic wants to play. I think they've taken too many penalties in the first week, which has been a factor. So we'll see. I mean, I do think it's a big game in Weyburn tomorrow night, though. I do. Just to see how this team responds to some early adversity. There's a lot of talent on this team. Guys like Alex Blanchard on the back end. He's a newcomer. Logan Ziegler up front's been impressive. Cade Runke and Cody Davis, I think, have been very, very good in the first week of the season. They're going to drive the bus up front. So there's a lot of pieces there. Hopefully Cam Hrdlicka gets back healthy. He's an important piece to this team this year. And we'll see if they can put it together. It's going to be an interesting year. It's going to be interesting how it breaks down to follow this team, because there were games last year, Jeremy, where you went in and you pretty much knew the Bruins were going to win the game, right? Going to Melville, going to Weyburn, right. Them coming to Estevan. That's not the case this year. It's going to make for more exciting hockey for me as a broadcaster and for all the fans here in Estevan. So I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, and you kind of mentioned it too, is, at the end of the day, there's so many new faces on this Estevan Bruins team. It's going to take some time. It's going to take some time for this team to gel, and, once they get to kind of where they want to play and where Jason Tatarnic wants this team to be, they're still going to be a great team this year.
Absolutely. The other thing I'll point out, Jeremy, don't forget, there were guys brought in mid-season last year. Cade Runke came in a few weeks in. Eric Pierce, who you could argue was the playoff MVP for this team, came in, a month or 2 months in. So Jason Tatarnic, with his recruiting contacts that he has, he's going to look to bolster this team. Because if there's one thing I've learned about him, he's not going to accept mediocrity. He wants to get this team back into the playoffs and compete for another championship.
And that's what Estevan Bruins fans want to hear for sure. Well, Nolan, thanks so much for taking some time to join us today. We really appreciate it. Have a great call in Weyburn tomorrow night, and we'll see you at the showcase.
Thank you, Jeremy, for having me on, and great work with all the stuff you guys are doing. It's looking great so far. Great for the league.
Thank you so much, Nolan. That is the play-by-play voice of the Estevan Bruins, Nolan Kowal. A great chat with Nolan, from a former voice of the Estevan Bruins to the current voice of the Estevan Bruins. And I agree with him, Clark. You know, it's 4 games into the season. There's no need to hit the panic button or anything like that. This is a team that, you know, they only had a handful of returning players this season, so it's going to take some time for them to gel. They're still going to be a solid team in this league this year.
Yeah, we were talking about this the other day, and it's not only Estevan, but you know, in a league like the SJHL, where there's it's a heavy 20-year-old league, when you lose as many impactful players as they did, you know, their leadership group for the most part, and that kind of thing, and their starting goalie from last year, it's going to take some of the players who might have not been in the more impactful roles a little bit of time to find out what their new role is, and maybe take that leadership role, take on a little bit more of that brunt of everything. So it might take a little bit of time for those guys, and yeah, like Nolan said, give to Mr. Tatarnik a little bit of time, and he'll have those boys whipped into shape. I don't think they were necessarily out of it in any of these games either. So they're keeping it close.
Yeah, 100%.
None of these games have been blowouts necessarily. I know they had a rough last half of the game against Nipawin the other night, but none of these games have been blowouts. I think they're right in it, and I look forward to seeing them kind of develop as the year goes on.
You lose 2 games by 1 to Yorkton, and then a tough, like you mentioned, a tough really 5 minutes against Nipawin in the third period. They end up falling 6-3. But I do have to correct you on one thing. I wouldn't say the SJHL is a heavy 20-year-old league, and the stats back it up, Clark.
Oh, thank you, Jeromy.
24% of the SJHL is 20-year-olds, but, you know, in the media package I actually have for the SJHL Showcase, which we are going to get into, the league's mostly made up of 18 and 19-year-olds. 18-year-olds and younger actually make up 42% of the league, and 19-year-olds make up 34% of the league. So I think there is a notion that, the SJHL is a heavy 20-year-old league, but, when you actually look at the numbers and everything like that, the numbers actually back up that the league is starting to slowly get younger and younger. Maybe back when we were in the league, it was a bit more heavy on the 20-year-olds for sure. But yeah, going back to the Bruins, it's 4 games into the season. I think you got to kind of, right now, at the beginning of the year, the first 10 games, you got to let play out, and then you can kind of make a bit of a judgment call on how teams are doing, because it's early. It's early. We are, today's day 7 of the SJHL regular season. Unfortunately, no games tonight, but we might as well preview the upcoming weekend. We talked about one game tomorrow in the SJHL, a big one in Weyburn between the Bruins and the Red Wings. But tomorrow, Friday, is essentially, if you go and look at the schedule, there it is. It's rivalry day.
Oof.
In the SJHL regular season. Okay, there's one there that might not be as much of a rivalry as Melville takes on the Battlefords.
Maybe it's a brewing rivalry. Maybe this will start something.
It could be. But those other 3 are definitely prominent rivalries for sure. You have the Larange Ice Wolves visiting the Flin Flon Bombers. You have the Estevan Bruins visiting the Weyburn Red Wings. And then you have the Humboldt Broncos battling the Melfort Mustangs. Those 3 games, those are 3 of the biggest rivalries in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. But even that Melville Battlefords game is going to be extremely entertaining, because you have Battlefords, who's 3-0 on the season. And worth mentioning, Melville has only played 1 game so far this year.
Yeah, we got to get them on the ice.
Well, funny you say that, Clark, because they're about to get on the ice, and they're about to be very busy, because they actually have to play 4 games in 5 days. Friday, Saturday, they have Sunday off, and then they play Monday, Tuesday at the Showcase. So they're going to be
always fun. 4 and 5.
Yeah.
Always fun.
Yeah, it's a busy time in the SJHL showcase weekend, I should say, for the Melville Millionaires. But lots of great games there. Yeah. What stands out for you in those 4?
Estevan Weyburn.
Yeah, of course.
I might sound slightly biased just because, I used to sell tickets to those games. That was part of my job. So Estevan Weyburn always had a sense of fun to it. But let's be honest, Larange, I love what they're doing up there in Larange.
Me too.
I love the fact that they're going to go into Flin Flon and have a really fun time up there. Humboldt and Melfort, those teams are going to be good this year. So to see what they can do against each other as well,
sure.
Especially going into a showcase style of week coming up, they're going to want to send messages to each other as well. So I think all 4 matchups have their own unique little positives, and I think all of them have storylines. So I'm really looking forward to just seeing how it all kind of plays out in the next few days.
Yeah, that Humboldt-Melfort one is going to be outstanding because I think going into this season, a lot of people peg those two teams to being two of the top teams in the SJHL. For sure. So I think it's going to, and I mean, after we've seen how they've kind of played out the season so far, again, small sample size for the Humboldt Broncos. They have only played one game, winning 7-2 over Notre Dame. But Melfort looks really good. They had a great outing against the La Ronge Ice Wolves, and still a great outing against Flin Flon despite the loss. And then you go up against a Humboldt team that's only played the one game, but they're going to be a great team this year, and it was a great game. So for them to have a home and home right before the showcase, it's going to make for some exciting hockey.
I'll just want to give a quick shout out to La Ronge too. Loving the new jerseys. Keep it up. Love the purple and the inclusion of the purple and the new logos and everything. I really like how they went with those. So shout out to La Ronge.
They are very sharp jerseys.
Yeah, I like them.
I'm going to give a shout out actually to those new Nipawin jerseys.
Oh yes, yeah, we were talking about this.
We were talking about those yesterday, and I was in Nipawin on last Saturday for their home opener against Flin Flon. And when I saw those jerseys, I thought, I had to ask the voice of the Nipawin Hawks, Clark Stork, if those were new. And he was like, they are, and they're very sharp. And I couldn't agree more. A lot of sharp. There's a lot of sharp jerseys in this.
I haven't seen one I haven't liked yet. Melville's new jerseys that they launched, sharp.
Very sharp.
So there's a lot of Estevan's new jerseys as well, the yellow. Great job all around.
The Jersey game in the Saskatchewan.
Like we could just go through all the teams. We could. That'll be a whole show. Maybe next week we'll talk about jerseys across the league.
Maybe, or we save that conversation for a week where, like during Christmas, when there's no games going on, and we could just dive into the jerseys.
Yeah,
of the
and we'll have lots of pictures and stuff to use at that point as well. So that'll be a good time.
100%. Let's get into quickly Saturday. There is 2 games on the schedule right before the SJHL Showcase. That is the Melfort Mustangs and Humboldt Broncos going round 2 in their home and home. And then the other game is going to be the Kindersley Clippers playing host to the Melville Millionaires as Kindersley looks for their first win of the season. Tough shootout loss to Notre Dame on Tuesday, but they'll be looking for their first win, and we'll see what Melville will be. Melville might be looking for their first win too. We don't know because they're going to be playing Battleford on Friday, but still a busy weekend of hockey around the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League before the SJHL Showcase.
Yeah, and like you said, Kindersley, they're going to be at home. They also, I think, are revealing new jerseys potentially this weekend. I think they put out a tweet the other day that they're going to have a new jersey.
I think they already played with them.
They might have played with them already. That might have been that game.
That might have been.
Either way, lots of exciting. I just love talking about jerseys. I don't know if you guys can tell.
He's excited.
But it's going to be good. And, Melville Kindersley, that's going to be an important game again because, again, you said this already, but Melville hasn't played many games. So they're going to want to start getting some, their legs under them a little bit and get some wins under their belts, especially if they're going to be seeing a lot more division rivals later in the season, which is usually how it goes. To get some wins early, especially on the road, always important.
And I think just building momentum ahead of the SJHL Showcase, which runs Sunday through Wednesday at Legends Arena in Warman. I mentioned earlier on in the show, if you can't make it to the Legends Arena in Warman, good news, all the games are going to be on SaskTel, thanks to the partnership between the SJHL and SaskTel, which is outstanding. And you can still watch the games on Hockey TV. And I do believe, I still got to find out. I'm pretty sure it's on the SaskTel Facebook page. The games were last year. So there's many outlets to check out the SJHL Showcase this year. Like I mentioned earlier, 2 games on Sunday, 4 games on Monday, 4 games on Tuesday, 2 games on Wednesday. It's going to be very busy. I'm going to quickly run through the SJHL Showcase schedule because it's a busy one. So Kindersley will take on La Ronge Sunday afternoon at 4:30. Nipawin will visit Yorkton. All the games are at the Legends Arena. I'm just visiting. In such a habit of saying that. They visit somebody. They host somebody. All the games are at the Legends Arena.
Yeah, they're all visiting.
Nipawin's taking on Yorkton, 7:30 Sunday night. Then the first game bright and early on Monday, 10:30. La Ronge will battle Humboldt. Then you have Yorkton versus Kindersley. Melville battling Notre Dame. Flin Flon against Weyburn. So those games are 10:30, 1:30, 4:30, 7:30. Then on Tuesday, Melfort will take on Notre Dame at 10:30. Melville battles Flin Flon at 1:30. Battlefords will meet Weyburn at 4:30, and then the final game on Tuesday will be Humboldt against Estevan, which should be a great game. All these games are going to be great. The schedule makers, whoever makes the schedule for the SJHL Showcase or just the schedule in general, I think they did a really good job on the schedule making for the Showcase this year. And then finally on Wednesday, 10:30 in the morning, Battlefords against Melfort, and then the Showcase wraps up with the third meeting of the season already. And it would be, that's the third meeting in about 8 days between Estevan and Nipawin to close off the Showcase.
Yeah, Estevan getting that high-flying Nipawin Hawk team right away. And so, again, we talked about this the other day, you and I, Jeromy, but just like a good test for Estevan to kind of get their feet back under them after a championship season is, I would say, get out there against some really good competition early. So Nipawin's doing that for them. So maybe, a slap in the mouth might wake them up a little bit, and it's not a bad thing, let's say, early in the season. So that's going to be exciting. But all the games, I mean, how easy is it to wake up, a 10:30 game, you might think, oh man, a 10:30 hockey game, that's tough. Not when it's Battleford Melfort. Like that's a good one. So that's going to be a fun one to get up for all involved in that one. So again, Showcase is such a wonderful 4 days. It's jam packed. There's always something going on, and I'm excited to see. Again, I said this earlier, but all the content that's going to come out of it, all the coverage we're going to have for this, it's just going to be nonstop for 4 days. It's going to be great.
All the games in their entirety on SaskTel and Hockey TV, which is outstanding. Clark kind of alluded to it. We're going to be pumping out the content on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. YouTube's a big one. Please subscribe to our YouTube because that's where you're going to get all those videos, interviews, and everything like that. So that's a good one. Of course, TikTok. Our TikTok's been really taking off, and we are on TikTok Live right now.
Yes.
For the people watching on TikTok, which is great because they kind of get an inside scoop because this is a recorded show, but they get to see kind of an inside scoop of the show.
So I actually got a comment on our TikTok live stream.
Excellent.
And this is actually a good question because we did kind of touch on this a little bit earlier.
Sure.
But Jeromy, Dev92 says, I don't understand fully why you guys do the Showcase. So we talked about this earlier with the amount of opportunity these players are getting. And the reason we call it a showcase is
to showcase all the players.
So maybe do you want to just touch on again all the aspects to why this is such an important event?
Well, I think the big thing is a lot of teams, or not teams, a lot of leagues across Canada at the junior A level do a showcase. Across really all four Western provinces, there's a showcase event, and it provides those opportunities for scouts to come to a neutral place and get a chance to see these players that they might not normally get to see. Obviously, technology has become a huge thing. Scouts are now seeing players online. They're seeing highlights. They're seeing just games on Hockey TV, which, of course, you can watch games on Hockey TV if you want to watch your favorite team when they're on the road. But it allows more exposure for these players who are looking to try and advance their hockey careers going on to that next level when it comes to schooling. For both schooling, for studies, and then also both for their hockey careers, because some players could move on and play, NCAA, both Division I or Division III. There's U Sports, ACAC. There's lots of different routes.
Tons of routes.
There's so many different routes when it comes to schooling, and this just provides kind of like a one-stop shop for scouts, as they can kind of come to one place. They fly in or drive in, and they get to check out, all the teams in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League for 4 days. Twice.
Yeah.
Not just one. It's not. But they can also kind of get an eye to see, they might see some players that they've not seen before, and then they can kind of keep an eye on the rest of the season, and then that player might get an opportunity to go on to the next level and go play at a school in whichever league. So there's a lot of great opportunity with the SJHL Showcase, and a lot of great opportunity for these players at an event like this to make a lot of great contacts when it comes to schooling across North America.
And Dev just goes on to say, I get that. I totally understand. I think a showcase later in the season might be more worthwhile because they'd have more team chemistry. One thing to remember is, like Jeromy already said, every league has a showcase. So, you have to make sure that it works so that you're not bumping up against another showcase either. So there's a time and a place for everything. But this is, like you said, 12 games in 4 days. It's going to be a super good opportunity for these players to see, or these scouts to see all these players. And I have, again, firsthand seen players get scholarships from this event. So it's a great event.
And the one thing I'll just, I guess, finalize and add, I get the point about, it is early on in the season. But the big thing is, for a lot of these college teams, they haven't started their years yet. So it gives them a little bit of opportunity for scouts or coaches potentially of those college programs to get away for a day or two.
Yeah, it's easier for them maybe at this point to get around. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, but there's lots of, we could talk about this all day.
You know what?
But we're not going to talk
about this. Let's extend the show.
We're not going to talk about this all day. No. It's a very exciting week in the SJHL between, obviously, the regular season game. And that's the other thing, just finally, when it comes to the showcase. These games matter.
They all matter. 2
points are on the line when it comes to the standings. So, these games matter. So teams are going to be battling it out for sure. So it's a busy stretch of hockey in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. We got four games Friday, 2 games Saturday, 2 games Sunday, 4 games Monday, 4 games Tuesday, 2 games Wednesday.
Buckle up.
I don't know how I remembered all that, but it's going to be a lot of hockey. And we're very excited for the SJHL Showcase and everything like that coming down the pipe. But for next week, we're still going to be back in the studio for SJHL Insider next week. However, we should mention our other show, SJHL Weekly, with myself, Rory McGoran, and Jamie Neugebauer. We're going to have 2 shows next week for SJHL Weekly. Not 1, but 2. We're going to have them, and they're going to be live from the SJHL Showcase at noon, both days on the SJHL Facebook, SJHL Twitter, and of course on the SJHL YouTube. We'll have guests. We'll have our analysis like we always do. It's going to be great. We're going to have both of those shows brought to you on to all those platforms, so stay tuned for those. But like Clark mentioned, we're also going to have a lot of great content on all the different social medias.
You're going to see interviews. You're going to see some highlights. You're going to see some clips. It's going to be a great time. I just can't wait to get it all undergo.
And it's going to be, we mentioned numerous times, it's going to be a busy week. For myself, it's going to be a very busy week because tomorrow morning or Friday morning, I'm actually going up to Flin Flon. I'm going to go see L'Orange versus Flin Flon. I'm excited for any of our Flin Flon or L'Orange fans that are making the trip. I will be at that game, so feel free to come by, say hi. I'll be getting content for SJHL.ca, all of our social medias and everything like that. And then I'll be making the haul to Saskatoon and Warman for the SJHL Showcase and be there from Saturday to Wednesday. So it's going to be a very busy time. Going to be putting a lot of miles on the vehicle, but we'll be back here in studio next Thursday for our 3rd episode of SJHL Insider. I guess before we go, Clark, your final thoughts on, the week that's coming up for the SJHL.
We're about to see a ton of games in a short period of time. And I know that we were talking about some of the stat leaders and stuff before this show started. By next Thursday, it's going to look completely different.
It is.
We're going to, guys are going to go from 1 to 4 games played to almost, 8 almost for some guys. So it's going to be a really big jump by next week. So you're going to not want to miss the SJHL Weekly or SJHL Insider next week because there's going to be a lot to update.
And it's tough to look at stats so far early on this season because there are Nipawin, for example, they've already played 4 games. So there's a lot of players in Nipawin and they've scored a lot of goals. So they're going to be at the top of the stats leaders. But before we go, we have to give a big shout out to all of our sponsors. All of our SJHL podcasts are presented by SGI. But a big shout out to all of our sponsors who really help put these shows together because without them, we wouldn't be able to put on all this great content for you. Chevrolet, Viterra, RBC, SaskTel, Saskatchewan Construction Safety Association, Direct West, Tourism Saskatchewan. Thank you for sponsoring our shows. It's outstanding. Of course, you can find SJHL Insider every Thursday afternoon on wherever you can get your podcast, both on Apple and Spotify. You can watch the video version of the show on our YouTube page. And there's, like I mentioned, there's going to be a lot of, there's a lot of great content coming your way. So be sure to like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and be sure to subscribe to our YouTube page, because that's the one we really want to grow, and that's where you're going to find a lot of great content moving forward, and a lot more, I guess, extended video content in the Saskatchewan Junior Hockey League. So it's a very exciting time. Stay connected with us on all of our social media platforms. Until next time, he's Clark Monroe. My name's Jeromy Corrigan, and this has been another edition of SJHL Insider.